Good morning. Welcome to Time in His Word. If you've ever done any traveling where there's mountains or big hills, like over here in West Virginia, sometimes you'll notice that there's 3 lanes going up one side of the hill. And usually there's a sign that'll say all slow traffic use right lane or no trucks in left lane, or it'll be something to distinguish that far left lane. The far right lane is for the slower moving vehicles. If we was to take and look at them 3 lanes and compare them to life, I think with the passage I'm going to use this morning, it'll help you understand a little bit better. If we look at those 3 lanes and think of them as how we go through life, sometimes we're all the way in the far left lane and we are just flying because nothing's getting in our way. It doesn't matter how big of an obstacle we have to climb, we can get to the top without any trouble whatsoever. The middle lane, it's a little bit harder. Slows us down a little bit. Maybe we're pulling a little bit more junk, as we would say, than we need to, but we're still making good progress. A lot better than the guys over there in the far right lane. They're just struggling. They've got to watch their temperature gauge because you can overheat. If you're loaded heavy, the hills, you've got to watch your temperature gauge because you can overheat, and heat is the worst enemy for a diesel motor. It doesn't take much and you've got troubles. So another thing that a lot of people don't know is the fans in a semi doesn't run all the time because it draws so much horsepower. They work off of a thermostat. So until the temperature of the motor reaches a certain point, the fan doesn't click on. It just sits there. It doesn't do anything. But when it's needed, it kicks on, and you can hear it kick on, and it'll cool that motor down as you climb that hill, no matter how, if everything's working right. And when we go through life, we're like those 3 lanes. Some of us really struggle with getting up the hill. The other 2 lanes, they just flew through without any trouble. But that doesn't make that 3rd lane any less more diligent, or however you want to phrase it. It just, everybody learns at a different pace. And I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. If we look at them 3 lanes and we think of how people learn and get through life, some of us fly through without any trouble. Others have a little bit of a trouble. And then that other group, they just struggle with everything. But eventually we all get to the top of the hill, one shape, form, or another. And the passage I wanted to read this morning, it's a little bit long, but I think it fits in if you think about those 3 lanes and how we look at and we get through life. Now, over here in these big hills and stuff, now when you go down the other side of the mountain, after you've reached the top, that third lane, majority of the time, disappears. You've got to merge back into the other 2, and everybody's back on the same level playing field. And so if we look at that, like I said, we all struggle with things differently. We all struggle, be it with the obstacles life throws in our way. We struggle differently with how we read and learn information, how we absorb and relate to that. But eventually we're all going to end up at the same place, just at a different time. But in Proverbs, the 4th chapter, like I said, this is kind of long, but I think it plays in good with what I'm trying to describe this morning. Starting in verse 20, "My son, give attention to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them depart from your sight. Keep them in the midst of your heart. For they are life to those who find them, and health to all their body. Watch over your heart with all diligence. Far from it flow the springs of life. Put away from you a deceitful mouth, and put devious speech far from you. Let your eyes look directly ahead, and let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. Watch the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. Do not turn to the right nor to the left. Turn your foot from evil. So see what I'm getting at? I think that's about an easiest way to describe this passage, the scripture, with what I talked about today, climbing that mountain. We're all going to go at it differently. We're all going to go at this thing called life at a different speed, different obstacles, you name it. But we're all going to end up at the same place, not at the same time, but at the same place with the same results. It's just a matter of how we obtain knowledge in that to get there.